So let's talk about those mornings when you wake up and you don't necessarily remember what happened the night before. Maybe you had a glass of wine, but you've had a glass of wine like 500 other times, and you never woke up the next day having this kind of ache in your body that you can't explain, and your body feels a little unusual. And you go to the kitchen and he's just there making breakfast. Like, he's fine, but you're not. Something's not adding up. You tell him that you feel a little off this morning and you're trying to figure out what the heck happened. And he says that you were slurring your words, that you got emotional, that, you probably just needed some sleep. You were just not quite yourself last night. And so you believed him. Because what else do you do when you're missing the time between you sat down to eat dinner, had a little glass of wine or had some hot tea, and the next thing you know, it's morning, you woke up and all you've got is an aching body and him making breakfast and him telling you what happened. And you can't really argue that because you literally don't remember. You just know what your body feels like. So let me tell you what researchers named about those nights in 2023. So not that long ago, only 3 years ago, did we get a name for this. And what happened probably was not a one time event. And it most likely had absolutely nothing to do with that wine. My name is Cheryl Sayre. I'm a national board certified forensic mental health evaluator and a licensed psychotherapist. A good deal of my work has been reading paper trails that relationships that sound like this leave behind and putting it in order so that it makes sense to the person who's living it. So now I'm going to ask you if you have ever heard of this, let me know in the comments. What the researchers have named this is chemical submission. Have you ever heard of chemical submission? Let me know so I know where most people are starting at. And then I know where to go in the future. Okay, but anyway, chemical submission. It is actually what people think about when they think like, oh, when you go out to the club or you go out to the bar or wherever where somebody else is making drinks, don't leave your drinks unattended. Get that nail polish that you can dip in the drink and it'll let you know if anything else has been added to it. Leave your drink with your best friend. So that's the version that is on the news. That's what's talked about on college campuses. It's what we're told about. Like, be careful, watch that drink. I'm not suggesting that we should stop talking about it. But I am saying that we also need to talk about the other side of it. Because the second version of that crime is something we are not having a conversation about. And it doesn't happen in a bar, it's happening in your kitchen. So by the end of this video, you are going to be able to tell those two things apart. You're going to understand why the second one is so much harder to see, why it's harder to prove, and in a lot of ways, why it's harder to even survive. And of course, I'm going to walk you through what it looks like from the inside because I think a number of you are probably going to start noticing that this is happening in your own kitchen. So, like always, let's start with the term itself, the two words chemical submission. It means using a substance to make another person unable to resist or unable to consent. Now, I don't know that I'm going to pronounce this right, but the French have actually used this for years and they call it soumission. Quemecu. I don't know. I'm trying to sound French. It's not my language, but it's something like that. And they have used it in their legal and medical language for years And that's part of why the Pellicot case in France ended up the way it did. In the United States, we have a federal law in the book. It's been there since about 1996, and it is the Drug Induced Rape Prevention and Punishment Act, which makes it a federal crime to give someone a controlled substance without their knowledge with the intent to commit a violent crime against them. And if you do it and you get caught and, it's proven, then you can do up to 20 years in prison for that. So in this case, not like in coercion, but in chemical submission, there are laws that do exist. What does not exist in most people's minds is a picture of who does this, who is actually doing this, who does this to another person. And a lot of us like to think, oh, it's that shady dude at the bar. Honey, it's not always the shady dude at the bar. There was a systematic review, and what they did was they went back through all of the published research on drug facilitated sexual assault, and they found the same thing over and over and over, which is the same thing I hear over and over and over. The people doing this are men. And guys, you know that I'm usually like, this isn't just a guy thing. This is women do this too. In this case, what they have found is this is done by men, and they usually already know the victim before the assault even happens. It's not a stranger. That dude at the bar sitting over there looking kind of shady, trying to buy you a drink. It's not him. It is somebody that you know. It is somebody that is typically in your life who does this. And the numbers are not small. The National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey found that more than 11 million women in this country alone report having been sexually assaulted while drugged or incapacitated at some point in their lives. 11 million. That's a lot of people. I am one of the 11 million people. In June of 2025, a team led by a woman named Jessica Eisen. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce her last name. But anyway, she published a review and it mapped in the entire global body of research on substance facilitated sexual violence, 53 studies. And one of the explicit findings was that we still do not know how much of this is happening in intimate partner relationships. Global study, no idea how often this is happening between people who are in a relationship with each other. And it's not because it's not happening. It's because, take a guess, nobody studied it. Nobody has studied it. And if we just look back historically, nobody really studies anything with women because we have hormones, which makes us too complicated to study, too complicated to get actual results. So here is yet again another area where something that is a male dominated crime happening against women, we're just not going to study it because, I mean, they've got hormones. So, too complicated. I don't know if that's exactly why, but just based historically, we just don't study women because for a long time we just weren't as valued. So most of the research that does exist, it all comes from college campuses and people who are engaged in a nightlife type setting, going to clubs, going to the bar, things like that. The wife being sedated in her own bedroom, she's not counted, but she has been described. Make it make sense. And in 23, a research team at the University of Bristol, Sarah Jane Walker, Marianne Hester, and Elizabeth McCarthy, They were working with Women's Aid in England, and they published a study in the journal Violence Against Women. So, what they did was they interviewed and surveyed 37 survivors and 9 domestic abuse practitioners, specifically about substances being used as part of coercive control. And the name they gave it there was chemical control. So I'm just saying, could this be what happened with Hayden? Could this be what happened with Clancy? I don't know. I'm just saying there were some pharmaceuticals or drugs involved in both of those cases. Just saying, like when we look at histories, I'm not making any accusations, but one wrote a memoir, the other's got a timeline. I don't know. Let's just keep looking at the evidence. And we'll see where it goes. Maybe, maybe. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts about that if you know the 2 cases that I'm talking about. It could it could be related to this. I'm doing my own charting on both of those cases, and I'd love to make a video about it, but I don't know. Okay, so back to this. The definition that they used is non-consenting use of prescribed and non-prescribed medication and other substances to coerce or control a partner in a way that reduces that person's capacity for independence, freedom, and health. So, not just in the 2 cases, not just in Hayden's case, and not just in Clancy's case, like, for everybody, let's just hear what I said one more time. Reduce a person's capacity for independence, freedom, and health. I'm gonna leave it there. We are talking about this entire distinction, how this is intentionally being done in people's homes to over 11 million people who have reported some level of this happening. And there's still an undocumented number of people who don't even realize that it's happening. And again, we're not talking about one single night. We're not talking about one assault. That is not what's included in the definition. What they are saying is to reduce capacity, her capacity ongoing as a condition of the relationship. So, what did the 37 people from that study report? More than half, 51%, said that a partner or ex partner used substances to make them do something that they did not want to do. 30% said a partner deliberately withheld essential medication or treatment from them or from their children. I have also experienced that one. Somebody withholding money to prevent me from being able to buy the medication that my child needed. 24% said a partner controlled or limited their access to medication by controlling the money that was required to purchase it. Another 24% said a partner controlled or sabotaged their contraception. And 80% of the people in the study were living with a physical or mental health condition. And of those, more than 2/3 believed that the perpetrator used that condition against them as part of the abuse. And 86% said the condition itself was a direct result of the abuse. It frustrates me that we don't see this when we have so many women saying, I wasn't like this before. I wasn't like this before. What is going on? So, yes, some of these conditions and a lot of these symptoms are directly related to the abuse. So let's just sit with it for a second. He makes her sick, and then he uses the sickness against her and as a leash. So I'm just curious, like, I'm legitimately curious. How many of you have been called mentally unstable or have been told, I'll take the kids, you'll have nothing. They're going to see how effing crazy you are. I'll get you locked up. Go ahead, call the cops. They're going to take you, not me. Look how crazy you're acting. What's wrong with you? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you've heard any of those or if you've heard something different where they intentionally antagonize and try to get you worked up. And yeah, buddy, you just threatened me. Like, you just threatened to take my kids away, and you don't think I'm going to be passionate about that? You don't think I'm going to get a little, you know, back in the day with you about that? Like, it's gonna happen. A totally different version of who you are is going to show up. We're talking about our children. We're supposed to protect our kids. And if you don't have kids, maybe they're threatening to keep your dog or something. Like, whatever it is, whatever the thing is that they're using against you to try to throw you off and get you worked up so that they can say those things, like, just let me know. Because you know what? I might not have all the words or all the examples, or I might skip a couple hundred of the phrases that are used. But if you put one in the comments, you never know. I've seen easily 1,500 people like a comment of somebody who said, "This is what they said to me." And it wasn't even something that I mentioned in the video. It was a personal experience. And then 1,500 other people validated that that is also something that is used against them. So you never know. I'm not going to mention everything. So when you help and you add to that, you never know who else you're helping. All right. So I'm trying to stay on track, but this one is deeply personal and important to me. So I'm probably going to have a couple more tangents. So the researchers found that chemical control moves in two directions. The first direction is withholding. He controls the pain medication and hands it out when she complies with what he wants her to do. He controls the insulin, he controls the treatment that she needs to function. Practitioners in that study described a woman whose partner would hold back her insulin until she agreed to what he wanted her to do. And they described medication withheld from people who had trans partners and from people who had HIV that they were trying to manage. Like, that's just horrific. I don't care what your beliefs are on anybody's lifestyles, whatever it is. We don't do that. That is absolutely disgusting. That is hateful. That is horrible to withhold from somebody who's trying to manage something, to manage a disease. I don't care if it's HIV or diabetes. I don't care if it's a foot fungus or a headache. Like, it doesn't matter. We That's not okay. On any level, it's not okay. And one woman, actually, she was describing her pain, and she said that her pain got so bad without her medication that she was repeatedly hospitalized and that she couldn't get out of bed at all. She was unable to manage her life. And this was all thanks to somebody who was withholding the medication that she needed. So, beyond being annoyed, what does the withholding actually accomplish? Well, it accomplishes a few things because it has nothing to do with the level of pain that somebody is in. But a person who cannot stand up and walk out the door, guess what? They can't leave. And that's the entire point. A person who can't think clearly cannot get up and leave. Where are they going to go? What are they going to do? Why are they leaving? How do they even explain it to anybody? Let's just withhold the medication. A person with diabetes and their blood sugar suddenly goes up. What are you going to do? You're going to leave without the medication? It's the whole entire point. Controlling the medication is the whole entire point. It keeps you stuck there. The second direction is administering, like they get to play doctor. And one woman in the study described a husband who always insisted on dispensing her prescribed medication himself because he told her that she was just too weak. She couldn't pop open those little foil packets, and it's just so hard to untwist that bottle. And, maybe some of that was true. And he was just so sweet and kind and thoughtful and caring. And all he wanted to do was help. And, why would you make a fuss about that? And if she ran out of the medication, he didn't seem too bothered by it because he's got it under control. He'll take care of her. And what happened was she started to feel like she was unable to make her own decisions. And because the medication was so iffy, he didn't give it to her when she needed it. He decided when she needed it. He didn't want her touching the foil things. He would put it places she couldn't reach, or he would just, keep it put away so it was safe so that he could account for it. And she stopped being able to see a version of her life where she actually got healthy, where she actually got better. It was gone because she didn't even have control over her medication. And then one of my favorites in a bad way is a woman who described a partner who convinced her that she was losing her mind and she needed to be medicated. So she goes to the doctor and she comes home with, all her antidepressants for a problem that she didn't realize he was creating the whole entire time. But now she's on the medication because, she's the problem, not him. She's got to learn how to survive in that environment that he is creating that is abusive. But, you go get medicated and, nothing against some medications, some, not all. Not, I have to withhold until I retire, and then I can tell you what I actually think. Okay. So my point with that one is he created the situation, and I've seen it so many times. He creates the environment, he's abusive, he's doing the abuse. He tells her, "Honey, you need help. Like, I don't know what's going on with you, but you gotta go see somebody. Don't talk. No, I'm not cool with the therapy, but just go to the doctor and get some medication. I just need you to be compliant over here. You're making it really difficult." Alright, so that was her, and then there was another woman who described a husband who came to every single appointment. He spoke to the doctors for her. Any question that she was asked, she didn't even get to answer it. He answered every single question for her. And then there was a specific medication that she was like, I'm not doing it. Like, I don't want that. I don't want the medication." And guess what? She left with the medication. Not only did she leave with the medication that she said that she absolutely under no circumstances was going to take, she was there. Her husband spoke to the doctor, talked to him all the way down until the doctor was like, "Yeah, you know what? I think that is a good idea. Let's try that. Let's try that medication." Writes the prescription, and here she is. She starts taking it. She was still taking the medication 12 years later. Not only was it 12 years later, but she had left him 7 years ago. So 7 years ago, she left the husband and continued on that medication. And so today she says, she just can't understand when she looks back is why the doctor never asked her, you know, honey, could you answer the question? Never raised a freaking eyebrow at the fact that here she is, a grown woman. She's very articulate. She's able to speak. She can have a conversation. Nobody ever asked her to answer a question. They sat there and they allowed the husband to answer every single freaking question without ever asking her directly to speak. So I don't know if any of you have experienced that, but I'll tell you. And I have parents who absolutely hate me because even if I don't care, if you are 7 years old, your mom is not going to sit there and tell me everything that you're thinking. If you're 14, 15, that is not, we're not going to do that because each individual person has their own version of something that happened. And I have asked plenty of parents to like, just just let the kid speak. Let me hear from the kid. Not what you think the kid is thinking, because it's impossible to know what a child is thinking. So let's just simmer down and let the other person speak. I've had wives who try to speak for their husbands, and, I'll let them go on their tangent. And then I'll say, okay, you got to say what you had to say. I'm going to ask you to hold this thing. You're not allowed to speak until I take the thing back. I usually give them a little goat that screams. It's adorable. My friend Crystal gave it to me. Um, but that's how we do it. And then I let the other person speak. Like, you're you're allowed to talk for yourself. Just because somebody thinks they know what's best for you, you have your own experience that you are living, and you are allowed to have that conversation. And I wish that more people, doctors, hello, if you're out there, like if your doctor is doing this to you, send your doctor this video and just let them know the timestamp that they need to listen to. If anyone is speaking for another person, ask them the question directly and please allow them to answer. Even when I take my niece and nephew to the doctor, I let them do the talking. If there is something that I need to address more thoroughly, then obviously I do so. But for the most part, I can't answer the question of what it feels like when you go to the bathroom. Like, I don't know what's going on inside their gut, but let's get on board here. Let people talk for themselves, let them speak. Another tangent. And I'm going to try to do I'm not going to promise you anything because I'm very passionate about this. But okay, so there is also a version of chemical submission that, guess what, doesn't require a prescription at all. Oh boy, I feel another tangent coming. Just a warning, you might want to fast forward. But there is another study where practitioners describe a man who was taking sleeping pills and other things I'm not going to name because I'm not going to give anybody any ideas. And what this person was doing was they were grinding them up and putting it in things that the wife was drinking every day. And then what he did was he used the state of mind that she was in against her. I actually have a video of something very close to this situation. But in the case that I have the video for, what he would do was he would give her some kind of medication and then he would give her alcohol. Then he would go up to the room when she was sleeping. He would record himself with his phone so that he would have evidence against her for what a POS she was. So he recorded himself abusing her. And part of the speculation with that is it was kind of a twofold situation. One was if he needed to, he could show the court, like, look at how she is. His bad on that was he was, like, actively abusing her in her sleep on video that he was planning to use against her. So, not the brightest crayon in the box, but, the other side of that was he was possibly using this as a way to solicit other men to come and use her body by demonstrating that, "See how out of it she is? Now you can come and do whatever you want, and she'll have no clue about anything because, she's done right now." Um as disgusting as that is, for me personally, the most disgusting part of all of this was as I'm watching this video, there is like a 3 or 4-year-old child who is sleeping with the mom. And when the kid wakes up because of what the father is doing, slapping the mom in the face and screaming at her and stuff, this kid rolls over, sleeping, pushes himself up, looks at the mom, evaluates her. This kid is like 3 or 4 years old and evaluates the mom and then reaches over and starts wiping the mom's tears away. So, what gets me about that is this kid did not start screaming. He was not in shock. He was not terrified. He was not like, "Oh my gosh, what the hell is going on?" No freak out, nothing. It was just normal. It was just, "This is what happens in this house." That's it. Dad comes up in the middle of the night. Dad hits mom in her sleep. They scream. My job is to make sure mom is okay. That's it. The kid didn't even cry. All he did was try to take care of his mom. That is so unbelievably disturbing to me. So, not only are these coercive acts and this chemical submission going on, but a lot of times there are children who are present, who are witnessing or seeing some of these things. And I'm going to talk about the kids just a very little bit because it's too heated and it's a lot. And this video is already going to be really long. So, okay, but we will get there. So, that is something that I really find that highly disturbing. And then there's another woman who said her husband would bring her tea every single morning for years, and she told herself how wonderful he was and how much he cared about her and how thoughtful he was, and it wasn't until afterwards that she started to realize why she couldn't fight back. Just remember that. He seemed so sweet, he brought her that tea every morning, and then she realized that was exactly why she couldn't fight back. So Evan Stark is the person who built the entire framework that this field runs on. And one of the things he said was that in coercive control, the regulation is very often disguised as care, not as being cruel, but as being caring, as looking after you, taking care of you, doing things for you so that you don't have to. I'm just going to take one more thing off your plate. And you've just seemed so tired lately. So I'm going to handle that for you. So now we're going to get to the part that I really think explains why so few people ever report this and what most don't even recognize while it's actually happening. So, when we talk about gaslighting, gaslighting requires him to argue with your memory. He tells you it didn't happen that way. You have a version, he has a version, he wears you down until his version wins. We know that because that's how gaslighting works. Chemical control does not require him to argue anything because he removed your version completely. It's gone. And you cannot be a witness to your own unconsciousness. You just can't. There is no account for him to contradict because you never actually had one. He erased it with whatever it was you were given. That is gaslighting with a physical accomplice. And your own body confirms his story. You were slurring, you did lose time. He's not lying about a single symptom. He's lying about the cause, but he's not lying about what he witnessed. And he is the only person that knows the difference. He is the only one that knows the actual truth. So then what happens? Well, I assume you go do what any reasonable person does. You go to a doctor and you say, I'm exhausted. I don't know what's going on. My memory's getting bad. Some mornings I don't even want to get up anymore. And the well-meaning doctor will run all of the tests. They'll check your thyroid, your iron. They might give you a prescription for something to help you sleep. Uh, maybe something for your mood. And then they tell you to reduce your stress levels. But nobody is asking who lives in the house. Who else is there with you? Nobody asks who's giving you your pills. Are you taking them on your own? And nobody's saying, and I noticed that you don't come to your appointments alone, or nobody's asking your husband to wait in the lobby. Instead, it's like, yeah, come on, everybody could fit in the room. We could do this all together. Team sport, doctor's appointment. No, no, that needs to stop. The Bristol researchers said in their recommendations that general practitioners and pharmacists need training to recognize these patterns, including patients who repeatedly request too much or too little of a prescription and who never seem to improve, who never seem to get better. Right now, most providers have never been taught to see it. And that is why the medical system is not catching it. And in some of these cases, the medical system becomes the instrument. So if you're married and you have children, or even if you're married and you didn't have children and you try to divorce this type of person, that instrument becomes the court. While you're in the relationship, sometimes the instrument is the medical establishment. They're using systems that are supposed to be designed to help against us. That is the reality of what is going on. And we need to wake up to this because eventually what's going to happen is we're going to move away from the medical system and we're going to decide to get a divorce. And then we're going to just move it into the court. And then the courts are going to be used to continue the abuse. And of all the things I've gone off track on, this is probably what pisses me off the most, and it will probably get you a little triggered too, because I've just seen it too many times. If this person, if this husband or boyfriend can arrange for you to be visibly impaired at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when you go to pick your kids up, he doesn't have to do anything to prove that you are an unfit mother because the school is going to report it. And then the agency is going to open a file. And then the file is going to walk right into the custody case. And guess what? His name isn't going to be on it because he is Mr. Squeaky Clean over there. And there was actually a woman in one of the studies who described that exact situation. That is not made up. This is something that actually happened. Her drinks were being tampered with every single day. So she would arrive for school pickup. She wasn't alert. And eventually the school was like, I don't know if it's safe to let the kids leave with her. So they called social services. And social services had no questions for dad because dad wasn't doing the pickup. It was against mom. He never had to make a single accusation because what he did was he built one. And the behavior that would prove that he was doing this was absolutely impossible to prove because you can't document something that you cannot perceive, something that you don't realize is actually happening. You can't report a night that you don't remember. And then when you finally start putting it together, then it's starting to make sense and you're seeing the pattern and you hear yourself saying it out loud, you sound insane. And that is exactly what he told you you sounded like, and exactly what he said he was going to use to take the kids away from you because you're unstable. So, how do you go to somebody and say, I think my husband might be drugging me? I don't really have any proof because I was pretty much asleep. And let me tell you, I have worked with multiple children who have told me a very similar story to that, and the story stays consistent. And there's a couple people that I'm thinking of that over a 3 to 5 year period, nothing in the story changed. And guess what happened? DCF or whatever agency had no idea what to do with it. So what they can tell me is, I remember like I was taking a bath and he would come in the bathroom and shut the door and smoke weed and I would feel dizzy, and then he put something on my face and I woke up the next day and my body didn't feel right. But guess what happens when you don't have the entire memory? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And it makes me want to snap because they know that if you can't remember, there's nothing to report. That if it's just, oh, I woke up in the morning and my body feels strange, or I woke up in the morning and I have these weird bruises on my leg or on my neck, but I don't know how I got them. Okay. You sound a little like maybe you lost some time. Is there some dissociation going on here? Like what's actually happening? Who gets bruised and doesn't remember? Because we're not looking at the people. We're not looking at the right people. And we can't just make things up either. We have to be able to document it. And if we can't remember, then what? What do we do? Okay, so let's get back to the adults because the kids, ooh, that could send me off for days because the kids, you know what? One last thing. The kids grow up to be the adults. They grow up to be us. So they need a voice. They need somebody to be able to speak for them and to protect them so that when they do grow up, their experiences are very different and they don't end up in the same freaking cycle that we were in at some point, possibly. Okay, back to the adults. So, back to the researchers. They found that nearly every survivor in those studies recognized what had happened only after they were out and somebody helped them put the pattern together and see like, "Oh my god, this wasn't just a one-time thing. Actually, this happened a lot. Actually, I never slept well." And the practitioner said that people do not disclose it, not because they don't want to or because they're hiding something, but because they don't know that that even counts as abuse. So let me give you one final example of this. And this is not a specific person or anything, it's more of a composite of things that I do see. There's a woman, they've been married for 19 years. He brings her coffee every morning before she gets up out of the bed. And she has told that detail to probably every single friend she's ever had as proof of what a good husband this man is. She sleeps for 10 or 11 hours. She wakes up exhausted. She has blood work done 3 different times over a 4-year period, and every single time, everything comes back normal, and she is starting to find it humiliating that there's nothing actually wrong, but she feels like there's something wrong, but everything says that she is normal and that she is fine. So, eventually, She stops driving at night. She stops making plans past 7 o'clock. And she's apologized for missing out on things that her friends have invited her to so many times that they don't even bother anymore. And then when her and her husband are out together, he'll make little sweet sounding comments like, she's a real handful and she needs a lot of looking after, but I don't mind taking care of her. And at 48 years old, she decides that that's it. She's done. She's leaving. And she stays at her sister's house. And about 5 weeks in to being at her sister's, she wakes up 6 o'clock in the morning. She is like, boom, like, okay, let's start the day. Completely clear head, and she lays in the bed, absolutely terrified to move because she has no idea what it is that she is actually feeling. But she is afraid that if she moves or she gets up and she starts her day, that it's going to go away. And she doesn't want to lose it because she cannot remember the last time that her eyes opened and she felt this good. That is what this looks like. All right. So, what do you actually do so that we can wrap this up because you probably have things to do? If you think something happened recently, get tested quickly and use very specific words. A lot of substances will leave your body pretty quickly, and a standard panel that they, would typically use may not find what you're looking for. So you're going to have to say it. You're going to have to be very blunt and say what you believe you were given or that you have been given something without your consent or knowledge, and you want to be tested for everything across the board. Test me for everything. I want to know if anything is in me. Emergency departments are actually pretty decent about this, and sexual assault nurse examiners can order very targeted testing that a routine visit is not going to cover. And then you're gonna document the pattern, not the incident. And I just wanna make sure that you do it correctly because you will never be able to document hours that you lost. You can only document everything around them, the date, what you ate, what you drank, who handed it to you, what time you started to feel different in your body, what time your body was changing, what the next day was like, how long it took to feel like yourself again. If you do that for 2 months, what you're gonna have is something that no single night is ever going to be able to give you because it's going to be starting to establish a pattern. And if I learned nothing else in graduate school, one thing that I learned was if you don't document it, it didn't happen. And I have spent my entire career recognizing exactly how true that is. So take your own medication, fill it yourself, count it yourself, keep it somewhere that is in your private space. If someone in your home has taken over the job of handing you your pills, whether it's romantic or not, you're allowed to take that back and you don't need to have a conversation about it. You could just start doing it right now. See the doctor by yourself, ask for an appointment. When nobody goes with you, you go on your own. And if anything comes up and there's an argument about you going alone or why they need to take care of you or why they need to take you or be there or they don't trust a doctor, blah, 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 whatever the reasoning is, write it all down because there you go. If nothing else, that's information. That is telling you something. You're going to see the freaking doctor. Like, write it down. And then tell somebody outside of your house so that there is another human being somewhere on this planet with a date attached to them that says that, oh, yeah, she did tell me this, and there is an actual record of it. And if you can, talk to a domestic violence advocate before you talk to anyone else, including an attorney, because an advocate will have the ability to recognize what you're describing in about 90 seconds. And they know exactly what words need to be used for it. And when you have the right words, it changes the way you get help and how your case is handled usually. I know that's unfortunate, but it's true. All right, so you did not cause this. You did not miss something that was obvious. There was nothing to catch. The whole entire structure of this tactic is that it works on the part of you that does the catching, which is why it shows up as care. So it's not that you had poor judgment. What happened was your judgment has been chemically interrupted by a person who has been counting on you to blame yourself for being a mess. And they want you to assume that all of this is just you. Honey, it's just you. That's why you're the one on the medications. That's why you're the one who wakes up feeling weird and doesn't sleep very well. It's not. It's part of the game. So it was not you. It never was. Okay, so 3 things for you to sit with, and you can take these to your therapist, or you can just go to a quiet room and do them by yourself. Number 1, is there a stretch of years where you were tired in a way that you could not explain to anyone? And did anyone around you benefit from you being tired? 2, who handled your medications, your drink, your food? When did that start? And do you recall any overlap in the way your body felt in the morning or just how you felt as a person the next day? Do you have any memories like that? And 3, when you finally were able to get away, to get distance from this person, if you have been able to do that, did you notice any changes in yourself? So sit with those and see what you've got. And I just want you to know that you do not need proof to start telling yourself the truth of the situation. Proof is for court, the truth is for you. And what you can have today is truth. All right. So if this names something for you, share it because sharing is caring, and sharing is how this reaches people who don't even know that chemical submission is a thing. They don't know that yet. So don't forget to do all the things like subscribe, hype it if you can. And you can also join me in the rewrite room where I go live twice a month and we discuss these topics in private in a way that I cannot discuss here in this format. So the link is in the description for that. Maybe I'll see you over there. I sure hope I do. Otherwise, leave a comment, do all the things. And next time, I'm going to talk about the organized side of this, the forums, the networks where men have taught each other how to do exactly what I just described. And no, it's not a conspiracy theory and it's not a rare occurrence either. And you deserve to know that these things exist and that they're going on right now. All right, so that's it. You didn't imagine it. And today you've been able to name it. The things that we have lived through have changed our lens, but they have absolutely, under no circumstances, changed your worth or mine. I will see you in the next one. I appreciate you being here. Don't forget to leave a comment. See you next time.